Welcome, everyone, to The Deep Dive. Today, we're really plunging into a case that is, well, it's chilling, but also incredibly instructive, I think, for anyone trying to understand the darker corners of the human psyche. Just imagine this scene for a moment. Two young women, maybe college students, right, standing on a deserted highway, just hoping for a ride. Pretty common back then, California, early 70s. That a car pulls over, and out steps this man. And he's huge, like a towering figure, 6'9" tall, literal giant. But he doesn't seem intimidating at all. He's sweet, seems polite, starts talking, makes them feel completely at ease. They feel like, okay, this is good. We found a genuinely helpful soul, a kind stranger. So naturally, they get in.
And that's exactly it. That's where the sense of security just shatters instantly. The man who seems so safe takes this unexpected turn, a deliberate wrong turn, and then suddenly the girls notice something just horrifying, something he'd planned meticulously. The inner door handles. They're missing.
Yeah.
Their hearts start pounding, panic's rising, and the car speeds up faster and faster, leaving any hope of escape behind. And it's right then, in that moment of just escalating terror, they realize this isn't some helpful local guy. This is Edmund Kemper, a name that would soon become synonymous with dread, the co-ed killer.
What an utterly chilling paradox he was. I mean, here's a man who looked, for all intents and purposes, completely normal, charming even. He spoke so intelligently, so articulately, like you'd expect from a professor, capable of these deep conversations. Yet beneath that calm, almost gentle exterior, this immense, uncontrollable rage was just simmering. He had this unnerving ability to project total normalcy while harboring this deep, deep pathology. He could fool anyone, and he did for a terrifyingly long time.
And that's precisely why he became known as the textbook case. It's so significant. He didn't really fit the existing molds, you see. He confounded even experienced investigators back then. The FBI, through these really extensive, kind of unprecedented interviews with Kemper after he was caught, they found his ability to seem so normal while having these destructive impulses gave them, well, unparalleled insights. Insights into how organized serial killers actually operate under the radar.
Right.
His mind, his intricate methods, his chillingly articulated motivations. It became this invaluable goldmine for the very new field of criminal profiling at the time. He was actually instrumental in developing the whole concept of the organized serial killer.
Oh.
Yeah, someone who carefully plans, stalks, manipulates, often seems perfectly normal on the outside. It's a stark contrast to the more impulsive, disorganized killer type. His detailed confessions let the FBI meticulously map the progression, from dark fantasy to violent action. It provided a crucial blueprint, really, for understanding that complex internal world that comes before such crimes, which was, of course, a critical step in identifying warning signs, developing intervention strategies for future cases.
So our mission today in this deep dive is really to unravel that disturbing journey. We want to trace how a child, apparently filled with such profound hatred for his own mother, could transform into this highly intelligent psychopath, Edmund Kemper. We'll explore the impact of his internal struggles, not just on his innocent victims, tragically, but also, crucially, on how we study criminal psychology itself. We've got a stack of sources, including some really chilling confessions directly from Kemper himself. So let's really unpack this story. To even begin to understand the monster, we have to go back. Way back, really. To the beginning, the childhood roots of his rage. Edmund Kemper grew up in California with his parents and two sisters. He was the only boy. And from what our sources reveal, it was anything but a normal, loving home. It sounds like a crucible of conflict.
Yeah, toxic is the word that comes up again and again. The sheer toxicity that just permeated his early environment is striking. His parents' relationship was deeply, deeply fractured, constant fighting, and it often escalated apparently into physical abuse, screaming matches, verbal altercations. So imagine young Edmund, probably a sensitive kid, witnessing this day in, day out. This wasn't just background noise, it was the soundtrack of his life. Normalizing aggression, normalizing conflict from a very, very young age. He was just soaking it all in, this aggressive, unstable atmosphere, absorbing its destructive lessons.
And then a truly pivotal moment, a real turning point that our sources really pinpoint as critical.
Yeah.
His parents divorced when Ed was just 9 years old. This wasn't just a separation, it was like an emotional earthquake. And some analyses suggest it was the primary catalyst, the reason for the whole tragic Edmund Kemper case.
Well, the sources make a really bold claim there, a profound one. They say, quote, "This divorce was the reason for the entire Edmund case." It suggests this critical fork in the road, implying that without this trauma, he might have gone down a completely different path. Maybe even become, as one source puts it, a normal professor.
God, the irony.
It's almost unbearable, isn't it, given his intellect later on? This divorce, it left what the source calls a permanent imprint on his young mind, changing his developmental path irrevocably. It's just a stark reminder, really, of how deeply formative and potentially destructive those early childhood experiences can be, especially the breakdown of the family unit.
And what happened next only seemed to intensify that imprint, pushing him further down that dark path. His mother, Clarnell, she gained custody, and Clarnell was, well, by all accounts, a profoundly dominating figure, verbally abusive, just a toxic presence in his life. Our sources paint this really stark picture of relentless verbal and psychological
Oh,
abuse.
absolutely. Clarnell seemed almost driven to demoralize Ed, constantly putting him down, telling him he was just like your father, good for nothing, these kinds of comments, daily, just chipping away at his self-worth. Clarnell apparently had this strong man-hater persona, this deep resentment, maybe from the marriage, that she just channeled directly onto her son. And Ed, he was growing fast, getting really tall, and she saw him as awkward. He became the prime target for her daily taunts. She mocked his height, his quietness, his perceived flaws. Everything about him became ammunition for her verbal attacks.
And the isolation she imposed on him. It's just incredible and disturbing to think about. It wasn't just verbal abuse. She actively separated him from his sisters, made him feel even more rejected. They slept upstairs, apparently, while he was sent down to the cold, lonely basement. And her justification for this? Chilling. She actually said, no normal girl is safe with Ed.
Almost prophetic, wasn't it? Coming from the person arguably shaping those impulses. And if you think about it psychologically, this relentless rejection, the constant put-downs from your primary caregiver, it's incredibly damaging to a child's sense of self, security, identity.
Yeah.
Ed himself later said, and it's heartbreaking, I used to cry myself to sleep because I felt rejected, unwanted, hated by my own mother. This profound emotional trauma, made worse by the physical isolation and his mother's pronouncements, it created this deep, festering well of resentment, pain, and this desperate need for control. It really set the stage for his fractured mind.
And this rejection, this constant feeling of being unwanted, hated, it started showing up in some really disturbing early fantasies and behaviors, didn't it? The sources show a deeply troubled mind forming even back then, long before the overt violence.
Well, it makes you ask, how does a child cope with that kind of intense emotional pain, that complete lack of real connection? In Ed's case, it led to what the sources call a profoundly disturbed mind. He started seeing pain and death as a source of control.
Control.
Exactly. The examples from his childhood are, well, they're harrowing. They paint a terrifying picture. He'd cut up his sister's dolls, sort of symbolic violence against female figures, right?
Right.
Then it escalated, harming animals. Eventually, he killed his own pet cat, dismembered it, and buried the pieces. These weren't just, isolated incidents of a kid being cruel. They were early, chilling signs of budding psychopathy, showing a child seeking power, control, maybe even a perverse sense of release through destruction, already finding a twisted kind of peace in violence.
So the stage was pretty much set for the next tragic chapter. In 1964, Edmund's just 15. His mother, Clarnell, makes this decision, probably thinking it was for the best, right? A desperate attempt maybe to fix his escalating behavior. She sends him off to his grandparents' farm, hoping this new environment, the countryside, would somehow normalize him, give him a break from her. But as our sources grimly detail, it did the exact opposite.
Yeah, the striking thing here is the terrifying continuity. The pattern just repeats. Instead of finding peace or stability, Ed runs into another dominating female figure, his grandmother, Maud Kemper. Maud, tragically, just continued the pattern. The same taunts, the same comments on his awkwardness, basically mirroring the psychological abuse from his mother. So the new environment wasn't a sanctuary. It just changed the face of his tormentor, replacing one source of pain with another, keeping that suppressed rage stoked.
And then, August 27, 1964, all that suppressed anger, all the humiliation built up over years of abuse, it finally erupted. Happened in the kitchen, apparently. Maud was taunting him again, and Edmund just snapped, pushed past his breaking point. Can you walk us through that chilling moment? What did the sources say about the intensity of that rage?
It's a scene etched in his memory, detailed with chilling precision in his confessions later. After Maud's latest taunts, something inside Ed just shattered, profoundly. He didn't hesitate, calmly left the kitchen, went to his grandfather's room, got his .22 caliber rifle, a hunting rifle, turned it on a family member. Without a second thought, pointed it at his grandmother, Maud, and fired 3 shots. A terrifying release. The silence afterwards, just the sound of her falling, must have been deafening. But for Ed, it was just the start of this horrifying release.
He didn't stop there.
Couldn't stop. He grabbed a knife from the kitchen slab and just repeatedly stabbed her body. A frenzy. He later described it as years of hatred pouring out with each stab, just the visceral, uncontrolled eruption of all that pent-up rage, all the resentment he'd carried since childhood.
And as if that wasn't horrific enough, there was a second murder soon after.
Yeah.
Calculated, almost cold. His grandfather came home, right? Had been out, totally unaware of the carnage inside.
Yeah, and this is where you see this truly disturbing, twisted logic, almost a perverse kind of control or even empathy from Kemper. In his confession, he said he shot his grandfather not out of hatred for the man himself, but purely to stop him from seeing his wife's dead body on the kitchen floor. He didn't want his grandfather to witness the grotesque scene he'd made. It suggests this bizarre, deeply disturbed desire to control the narrative, manage the aftermath, even right after such brutality. It really underscores this manipulative intelligence already there, even at 15.
What's truly unsettling, though, is Kemper's reaction after these heinous acts. His complete composure. No frantic escape attempt, no hiding the bodies. He just calmly calls his mother, tells her what he did, and waits for the police. It's a level of detachment that's just hard to wrap your head around.
And his own words to the police. They're incredibly revealing, a direct window into his developing psychopathy. He said, "Just wanted to see what it felt like to kill Grandma." Yeah. That's not the statement of a child consumed by remorse or sadness, is it? It shows a shocking, profound lack of guilt. No emotional connection to what he'd done. This emotional detachment, it's a classic hallmark of psychopathy. That inability to feel empathy or regret the consequences. He confessed clearly in court, never denied anything. And given his disturbing mental state, the judge declared him criminally insane. That was a common legal term back then.
Right.
He was sent to Atascadero State Hospital, a maximum security place housing some of the most dangerous mentally ill criminals in California.
And it was there, inside Atascadero, that he got his diagnosis. Paranoid schizophrenia. But here's where it gets complicated, right? The initial assessment seems to have dramatically missed the horrifying truth. Even with this severe diagnosis, the hospital staff couldn't quite square his outward behavior with the depth of his pathology.
Exactly. While he was at Atascadero, Ed openly, chillingly described his violent fantasies, how he found this perverse peace in cutting bodies, seeing blood. Yet paradoxically, many staff members often denied he was a psychopath. Why? Because he presented as so smart and professional. He didn't fit the stereotype of a visibly disturbed, maybe raving, psychotic individual. And this contrast was a critical early lesson for criminal psychology, that a high-functioning intellect could mask profound emotional pathology, making a dangerous person appear perfectly sane, even charming.
Right.
His IQ was later measured at a staggering 145. That puts him squarely in the gifted category, alongside top scientists and inventors, which led experts, especially later FBI profilers, to label him a high IQ psychopath, a terrifying combination of intellect and pathology that made him incredibly dangerous, incredibly hard to detect. This confusion over his diagnosis, the struggle to categorize him, it really highlights the challenges back then in understanding the criminal mind, and how Kemper became such a pivotal figure in shaping that understanding.
And this next chapter, it's almost impossibly ironic, isn't it? After everything, the system releases him, only to put him right back into the very crucible that forged his rage in the first place. 1969, Ed Kemper is 21. He gets released on parole, deemed rehabilitated, and unbelievably no longer a danger to society. But then, this cruel, devastating twist of fate.
Oh, it's truly a catastrophic failure, a decision with just horrific consequences. The court, against his own wishes, made the devastating decision, sent him straight back into his mother Clarnell's custody.
He didn't want to go back.
No. Our sources describe his immediate reaction in chilling terms. His blood boiling, his head throbbing like crazy with rage. He knew it was wrong. He had explicitly appealed to the court not to be sent back to his mother. He understood the toxic dynamic better than anyone, begged them apparently. Send me anywhere else.
But they ignored him.
Ignored him completely. This decision basically put him back into the exact environment, the psychological pressure cooker that fueled his initial breakdown in violence.
So he's back with Clarnell in Aptos, California. And predictably, their hostile relationship just picks right back up. A psychological war. She was still relentlessly, psychologically triggering him, keeping up that pattern of constant debilitating verbal abuse. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire that had only just been banked, right? Not extinguished, guaranteeing it would flare up again.
If you look at it from a criminal behavior perspective, it's a profound systemic mistake. The constant insults, the humiliation, it just fueled his internal anger, pushing him further towards his breaking point. That environment wasn't just unhelpful for recovery, it was a potent incubator for his destructive impulses to resurface and escalate. He was trapped, living under the thumb of the person who'd instilled such deep hatred, a hatred he'd already acted on with his grandparents.
There's this almost darkly ironic detail from this period, too.
Yeah.
Something that speaks to this strange, maybe desperate desire for normalcy. Kemper actually wanted to join the police force. Think about that. The future co-ed killer, a cop, the men who would commit these unspeakable acts wanting to uphold the law.
His ambition was, maybe, mercifully stopped. His height, that 6'9", was deemed too big for the uniform. They explicitly told him he was too large, a physical reason. So he sought connection elsewhere, which maybe speaks to a deeper, unfulfilled need to belong. He started hanging out at a local cop bar in Santa Cruz, buying officers drinks, befriending them. They even called him Big Ed, affectionately, completely unaware of the darkness lurking beneath that amiable surface. He was trying to fit in, trying to belong, but underneath, that deep personal void just persisted, aching to be filled.
In this void, it was profound loneliness, wasn't it? A pervasive sense of isolation, even amidst that free-spirited hippie culture of hitchhiking and college parties that was big then. Kemper was apparently profoundly awkward with girls. His first date wasn't until he was 21. And even then, it didn't really lead anywhere. He just couldn't seem to form proper connections, real intimate relationships.
Which raises this important, troubling question about his desperation, the escalating internal pressure. His physical and sexual needs were growing, becoming very difficult to control, he said, without any healthy outlet or connection. Combine that with his inability to form real relationships and the constant psychological torment from his mother, it created this explosive mix. Unmet needs, sexual frustration, unresolved rage, a volatile cocktail setting the stage for his next, far more terrifying chapter, where fantasies would start bleeding into reality.
And before those true horrors began, Kemper started this deeply disturbing precursor, what our sources call his disturbing practice. He was essentially rehearsing for the unspeakable acts he was planning.
Yeah, this chilling precursor gives crucial insight into the calculated, methodical nature of his pathology. He'd drive on highways, specifically looking for young women hitchhikers, offering them fake help, driving them where they wanted to go, but observing them, charming them.
Just practicing.
Exactly. And it wasn't just once or twice. He meticulously recounted doing this 100 to 150 times over several months.
150 times.
Yeah. Every ride, every polite chat, every pretended act of kindness. It was all cataloged in his mind as a rehearsal for the horrors to come. He was honing his deceptive charm, testing his control over others, building this terrifying confidence in his ability to seem harmless while planning predation. He learned how easily people trust, how to disarm them with his gentle giant thing, how to seamlessly blend his twisted fantasies with real-world interactions, all while staying completely undetected. It was a terrifying apprenticeship in manipulation and deception.
And then the breaking point. A day forever etched in true crime history. May 7, 1972. Sunny day in California, deceptively normal, but for Edmund Kemper, it started with another nasty fight with his mother. A final trigger, maybe, in a lifetime of torment.
The sources really emphasized the immense internal pressure he was under at that point. Years of pain, hatred, and suppressed anger weren't just boiling over. They'd reached this critical, explosive point. He desperately needed a release, an outlet for the suffocating pressure that had built for decades. He stormed out, got in his car, drove full speed onto the highway, and spotted two college students hitchhiking. It was this horrifying convergence, his internal rage hitting its peak, and the external opportunity of vulnerable victims. A culmination of trauma, desire, and those disturbing rehearsals. The die, tragically, was cast.
And so, the reign of the co-ed killer began. Marianne Pesce and Anita Lucchesa, May 7, 1972. Students from Fresno State trying to get to Stanford. Kemper's polite and gentle image, honed over all those rehearsal rides, worked its magic. They got in thinking they were safe.
The escalation was incredibly fast, horrifyingly brutal, and meticulously planned. Kemper deliberately took a wrong turn, veering off route, immediately making the girls suspicious. When they questioned him, his face apparently turned red with anger, a flash of the monster underneath. He then rashly parked the car in an isolated area, away from any witnesses, and that's when they made the horrifying discovery he'd planned. The inner door handles were gone, trapping them, a physical sign of the absolute control he craved.
God.
Marianne screamed. He met that with immediate, brutal force, handcuffing her. But what's truly bizarre, speaking to his fractured psyche, he later confessed feeling embarrassed and apologizing when he accidentally touched her breast while handcuffing her.
What?
Yeah, like it was some public mistake, completely detached from the horror he was about to unleash.
That fleeting moment of weird, almost normal apology just vanished instantly, didn't it? Gave way to pure savagery. It's a chilling testament to his ability to just compartmentalize.
Absolutely. Right after that, the pretense just evaporated. He suffocated Marianne with a plastic bag. When she resisted, he pulled out a hunting knife, stabbed her multiple times in the chest, covered the car in blood. Anita was next, dragged her out, brutally stabbed her too. No witnesses. Kemper himself later said, "My mind went blank and then it was like something snapped. I couldn't stop myself." A complete violent surrender to his inner demons. That release of pent-up aggression.
The aftermath of these first murders is just as chilling as the acts themselves. It gives this disturbing glimpse into the full scope of his pathology. Kemper, unnervingly calm, puts both bodies in the trunk, drives towards his mother's house,
Yeah.
feeling powerful. He said, "I felt powerful, like I had finally done something big."
And this is where we see the shift. From murder to profound systematic desecration, revealing the full extent of his necrophilic fantasies. Arriving home, he meticulously took the bodies to his room, undressed them, took naked pictures, then engaged in sexual intercourse with the dead bodies. A chilling act of ultimate control, objectification.
Horrifying.
But he didn't stop. He used a butcher knife to systematically dismember them, cutting, dividing body parts, putting flesh and organs in plastic bags for disposal. The most chilling detail, though, his focus on the heads. He'd keep them on his bathroom shelf or by his bed. Talking to them, he said, sometimes feeling they were still with him. Fulfilling this need for companionship and control he could never get with living women.
Oh my God.
And in a final, horrifying act of violation, symbolic possession, he performed oral sex with the severed heads before finally disposing of them. This became the blueprint for his later crimes, a horrifying ritual perfected in the privacy of his mother's home.
But even these profound violations weren't enough. Didn't quell the storm inside him. Just a few months later, the horror continued. The target shifted again. September 14th, 1972. He murdered Aikoku, a 15-year-old girl. Bright, talented dancer. Tragically missed her bus. This case, after the first co-eds, it really shows the evolution of his pathology, doesn't it?
Yeah, this abduction shows Kemper's cold, calculating side, devoid of any real emotion. Approached Aiko, friendly demeanor, offered a ride, familiar tactic.
Right.
Drove her to an isolated spot, pulled a gun. When she struggled, he strangled her with his big hands, then shot her in the middle of her head, ensuring silence, compliance. Then brought her body home. Engaged in necrophilic acts all night, dismembered her, disposed of the body. And the contrast here is just heartbreaking, deeply unsettling. While he's desecrating her body in his room, her parents were desperately putting up missing posters, frantically searching for their daughter, unaware of the horror. Kemper later reflected on Aiko's murder, trying to externalize it, saying, "She was just a child, and yet I had no control. It was like something else was operating me." That narrative of being controlled, it speaks to his rationalization, trying to absolve himself.
Then came Cindy Shao, 18 years old, college student, January 7, 1973. She was hitchhiking. Unknowingly, stepped into the same car where 3 girls had already been murdered, desecrated. The air in that car must have been thick with horror.
Cindy's murder was swift, merciless. Shot her suddenly with a .22 pistol, no chance to resist. Shows his increasing confidence, brutality. What's profoundly disturbing here is the depth of his attraction, his obsession, specifically with Cindy. He didn't just take her body home, he brought it directly to his mother's bedroom.
His mother's room.
Yes, he confessed later, chillingly clear, "When I killed Cindy, I took her with me because I wanted her. It was rage. It was possession. He wanted her as a prized possession, a trophy." This led to an extended period of desecration, far beyond previous victims. Carefully removed the bullet from her head, engaged in sexual acts with her dead body for several days.
Several days.
Several days. A truly disturbing stretch of time. Then butchered her body in his mother's bathtub, meticulously cut off her breasts, placed them in a bowl, disposed of the other parts, and then the most profoundly symbolic, twisted act. He kept Cindy's face, performed oral sex with her severed head for several days before burying it under his mom's window.
Under her window.
His utterly twisted rationale, he believed his mother always wanted people to look up to her, making it this final sick act of psychological revenge and mockery against Clarnell.
By this point, the stories of the co-ed killer were just viral, terrifying, spreading like wildfire. Campuses across California were gripped by fear, students warned not to hitchhike, police on high alert, desperate to catch this monster. But that didn't stop Kemper. February 4, 1973, he strikes again. Rosalind Thorpe and Alice Liu, two young students from the Santa Cruz College campus.
Yeah, despite the heightened fear, the intense police vigilance, Kemper, with his chilling confidence, managed to abduct them. The end for Rosalind and Alice was swift, brutal, gunning them down point blank in the head, eliminating any chance of resistance, screams, then subjected their bodies to the same repetitive ritual, dismemberment, necrophilia, a macabre routine deeply ingrained by now. What's truly unsettling, and a key insight for profilers studying serial crime escalation, even after all these heinous acts, Kemper's rage wasn't quelled.
It wasn't enough.
Not at all. Our sources indicate it only increased with every crime, demonstrates the insatiable nature of his pathology. The violence was never enough to satisfy that deep-seated anger, that craving for ultimate control. Each murder just sharpened his desire for the next, pulling him closer and closer to his ultimate target.
And then the apex. All that escalating rage, all that suppressed hatred, nurtured over a lifetime, finally turned on its original source, April 20th, 1973. Kemper makes this cold, calculated decision. It was time to eliminate the source of his rage, silence the voice that tormented him for decades.
That night, Clarnell came home late from a party, oblivious. Kemper went to her room, wished her goodnight. A final, chillingly normal interaction. Then went to his own room, patiently waited for her to fall asleep. What's fascinating and horrifying is his internal monologue as he watched her sleep. He later recounted it, reflecting on years of insults, humiliation, making him feel bad, causing so much anger. The decision crystallized, clear, absolute. It was time to end this person. This wasn't a spontaneous outburst. It was premeditated, calculated, fueled by decades of simmering resentment, a lifetime of psychological torture.
What he did next was just brutal, horrifying, incredibly symbolic, an act of ultimate revenge, a culmination of all his dark fantasies. Can you describe the true horror of that night and what those symbolic acts represented for him?
It was profound, deliberate savagery. He got a claw hammer, went back into his mother's room, struck her sleeping head multiple times without thinking, just letting the accumulated rage guide the blows. The scene was grotesque, a tableau of absolute savagery. Clarnell's bed, the sheets, pillows, the bed frame, the walls, the floor, even the ceiling, violently splattered, drenched in blood. Her bedroom transformed into this grisly, unrecognizable slaughterhouse.
Unimaginable.
The air must have been thick with it. The metallic smell of death, the echoes of his rage. But the mutilation, the symbolism, continued. Slit her throat with a penknife. Then, the ultimate act of disrespect, control. Decapitated her. Then engaged in the most profound post-mortem abuse. Placed her severed head on a table. Screamed and cursed at it for hours.
Screaming at the head.
4 hours! Unleashing all the venom, all the hatred he could never say when she was alive. A twisted kind of therapy for him.
And then he turned his mother's severed head into a dartboard. A truly disturbing act. Speaks volumes about that desire for humiliation, control.
Absolutely did. Made her head a dartboard, threw darts at her face, releasing anger and frustration with each throw. Each dart a potent symbol of his childhood pain and humiliation. A precise strike against the source of his suffering. Felt he was finally releasing that bottled-up rage, making her suffer as she made him suffer, even in death. And most disturbing, in a final act of perverse violation, performed oral sex with his mother's severed head. Fulfilling that desire for sexual domination, always denied it.
It just gets worse.
But even that wasn't enough. Brought the hammer back. Smashed his mother's head like a watermelon until it was completely destroyed, no recognizable features left. The final, profoundly symbolic act, silence her forever. Meticulously removed Clarnell's tongue and larynx, her voice box. Tried to dispose of them in the garbage disposal.
Why?
His chilling rationale, to silence his mother's torturing voice forever. But, in a final, ironic failure, her vocal cords proved too tough. Survived the disposal. A testament, he mused, to years of cursing, screaming, yelling, as if even in death, her voice, her power over him, refused to be silenced completely.
With his mother, his perceived biggest enemy, finally gone. Kemper, in this bizarre, deeply unsettling twist, felt quite happy. The storm inside him, he thought, had finally passed. He then invited his mother's best friend, Sally Hallett, over for movie dinner.
Sally Hallett became his final, truly unnecessary victim. With his biggest enemy eliminated, he felt this sense of perverse satisfaction. Strangled Sally to death, almost an afterthought. An easy victim present in his now clean world. Afterward, calmly placed both bodies, his mother's and Sally's, in a closet with a note, like a macabre performance for whoever found them. This act completed his rampage, cleared his personal world of the women who, in his twisted mind, tormented him.
After all of this, after disposing of the bodies, the final victim,
Yeah.
Kemper drove far away, expecting a massive police presence, right? A nationwide manhunt for the notorious co-ed killer. Envision this dramatic chase, headlines. But something profoundly strange happened. Nothing. No news on the radio, no frantic police activity, no investigation in sight. The police, unbelievably, were completely unaware.
Which raises this important psychological question for profilers. If no one was chasing him, if he was free, why surrender? The sources detail his bizarre self-confession. He went to a phone booth, called the police himself.
He called them.
Yeah. His first call, confessing calmly, measured tones, killing his mother and her friend Sally, was initially disbelieved. Officers, maybe thinking it was a prank, told him to wait a few hours and call back.
You're kidding.
Not kidding. Undeterred, he called a second time. That finally got police suspicious. They traced the call, arrived at his location.
And he surrendered, without any resistance or hesitation, completely compliant. It was during this surrender he confessed to the 6 co-ed murders, proudly declared himself the co-ed killer. But why? Why give himself up when no one was even pursuing him? What was the motive behind this final, bizarre act?
His chilling explanation reveals the very core of his pathology, invaluable insight for criminal psychology. He stated his mother was the source of all his hatred and frustration. With her eliminated, he felt an eerie emptiness, a void where his rage used to be. He famously said, "My source of rage was gone. I didn't need to keep killing anyone." Killing Clarnell was, in his twisted mind, his biggest achievement. She was always truly his favorite victim. He explained the other victims were merely a surrogate for my mom, and killing them made me feel like I was killing her again and again. They were just proxies, stepping stones on his path, the ultimate horrifying act of killing his mother. He'd completed his mission. The need to kill vanished.
When Edmund Kemper appeared in court, May 7, 1973, just weeks after surrendering, everyone in the courtroom, judges, jury, public, was absolutely stunned by his demeanor.
He appeared like that 6'9" gentle giant, articulate, composed, calmly, precisely explaining all his killings in great detail, as if he were explaining a math problem or something, not a big deal, completely devoid of emotion, remorse.
Unbelievable.
The public was in disbelief. How could someone so easily, dispassionately recount such horrific murders? It highlighted that profound disconnect, exceptional intellect, complete lack of emotional empathy, the terrifying hallmark of a high-functioning psychopath. The judges swiftly charged him with 8 counts of first-degree murder.
And while in custody, awaiting trial even after, some truly horrifying discoveries kept emerging, painting an even darker picture.
Indeed. He attempted suicide twice. Shows maybe a fragile mental state beneath that calm exterior. And perhaps most disturbing, psychiatrists discovered Kemper had engaged in cannibalism.
Right.
Confessed to eating leg flesh from his victims like chicken strips. After only 5 hours of deliberation, November 8, 1973, the jury, undoubtedly shaken by the sheer depravity, declared him guilty on all counts, sentenced him to life imprisonment. They avoided the death penalty, which has been debated ever since.
Today, Edmund Kemper is still alive, incarcerated in a California medical facility. His case, despite its horrific nature, continues to have this profound impact. He's a perpetual subject of study.
That's right. The FBI still studies him as that textbook case, an invaluable, albeit disturbing resource to understand the psyche of serial killers. His intellect was undeniably gifted, recognized early on. FBI profiler John E. Douglas, a pioneer in the field, spent extensive time interviewing Kemper, called him among the brightest of the many serial killers he profiled.
Really?
Yeah, and in a truly surprising twist, during his time in prison, Kemper's smooth narration, his resonant voice, led him to record several audiobooks for the blind.
Wow, bizarre.
A bizarre footnote to a monstrous life. His story, grotesque as it is, remains a critical tool for understanding criminal psychology, pathology. A dark mirror reflecting the depths of human depravity, the complexities of the disturbed mind.
So, as we wrap up this incredibly dark deep dive, we're left with this central, unavoidable question for you to ponder. It reverberates through this whole case. Can hatred, anger, or trauma ever truly justify such brutal, inhumane acts against another human being?
Well, the sources, and really the broader consensus in criminal psychology, are unequivocally clear here. Anger, hatred, trauma. While they might explain certain psychological predispositions, maybe motivations, They are no excuse for doing something like this. Edmund Kemper was a highly intelligent, calculated person. His blaming his mother, while maybe emotionally understandable in some contexts, it was essentially a facade for his own deep desperation and desire for domination over his victims, a cover for his profound pathology. The tragic truth, as described in our sources, understood by those who studied him, he was not a human but a monster in his actions, capable of horrors that just defy human comprehension.
The images that linger, they're truly haunting, aren't they? The blood-filled cars, the screams, his mother's dead body, and the pain for the victims' families. Those parents putting up missing posters who never saw their children again. That pain is still alive. A legacy of unimaginable grief.
And that's why his case endures, not just as a gruesome story, but as a critical learning tool. The FBI's continued study of Kemper helps them become better at identifying psychopaths, refine profiling techniques, and hopefully prevent similar horrors. This deep dive, while it's been a story of profound horror, ultimately serves as a critical, chilling lesson, understanding the complexities of the human mind and the devastating consequences when profound trauma meets extreme pathology.
We've explored these intricate layers of trauma, intelligence, and the monstrous acts that defined Edmund Kemper, a man who became a textbook case for understanding evil. But as you reflect on this journey through his disturbed psyche, what stands out to you about that complex interplay between a profoundly troubled childhood and the horrifying, calculated choices an individual makes? And where do you ultimately draw the line between attempting to explain such acts and outright justifying them?